Dwayne, you think we advertised early enough?
Probably not.
Huh?
So probably not. I don't really see anybody coming on.
But most people know that you have it on Sunday for most days anyway.
Yeah.
Anybody on YouTube?
Just says two people.
Mine,
So your audio is going out. I only see about two people. Or two, it says two views. I don't know if that's individuals or just devices.
I never sent you the power on the 12 yogas, right?
No, I don't think so. Is a new PowerPoint you're working on? All right, so there's a couple more people joining us on YouTube. And let's open up today's session with citing of prayer for spiritual workers. Prayer for spiritual workers. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their limitations, would smite me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their weakness, would not heed me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their ignorance, would defile you through me. And I ask, Almighty God, O wondrous power, that your strength may be given to me now, so that I might be fortified by this, so that I might go forward bravely into the world, and despite reception, send forth my love of thee throughout all races of man. Almighty God, give me the power and strength to rise above my karmic weakness, the deficiencies in the pattern of my evolution, so that I might evolve and become stronger, I, and even stronger in thy everlasting light. O God, thy will be done. All right, welcome everyone. Another open discussion and various topics. As per usual, feel free to ask and post any questions you may have or comments in the chat if you're joining us on YouTube. You can also join us on Zoom via the invite link that went out in the meeting announcement. You can also ask your questions and pose any comments you have there. Do we have any questions or comments to start off today's open discussion? Someone, username, is that a question? Do you have a question? has a question here. What is agorism?
I'm not familiar with that. Are you? Unless there's another name for it.
Will somebody ask a question? I stepped away for a second.
Yeah,
You're asking what is agorism? I haven't heard that term before.
What is what?
Agorism, agorism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Oh, I've never heard that. I've never heard that term before.
not in the mystic circles, no. That's not a known term in the mystic circle.
Okay. Couple of questions. What is voluntarism? And it says it's not volunteerism, something different. And another question is, what is Metatron cube? Voluntarism.
I'm not really familiar with that either. That's those are not known mystic terms. The second one is terms from the so-called magical world of elements that's used mostly by, from when I studied it, mostly by the dark forces. Bernard, are you familiar with it?
The term voluntarism,
Yeah,
not when it comes to metaphysics.
yeah.
Sounds more something like something tied to socialism in the early 1900s, 1920s and 30s.
Yeah, a lot of those magical, I forget what you call it, that dealt with the alchemist stuff.
Yeah, I heard about Metatron's cube when I used to study sacred geometry, and those are there.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was taken from the tantrums of the Hindus and Buddhism, and also the Egyptian stuff. And it was misused in the West. In the mystic world, it was done to create portals, but you create it and destroy it right away after you have created it. We have a time cycle for it. But in the magical world, they used it. They went against the rules in order to gain particular power or whatever over certain elements. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
There's a question here. It's, hello, I came across your channel for quite some time, but never got a chance to know the people behind Mystic Knowledge. What experience has led you to study metaphysics?
That's on our site, our website, on several websites. I've been in this all my life. I was born into into the mystic sciences of yoga. Both my parents were yogis, and they raised me in this with this type of yoga science as a religion. So, and if you know anything about yogis, we study all religions, but we have a focus on the yoga sciences. Majority of the yoga sciences are 12 yoga sciences. They intertwine with all other yoga sciences and science itself. Metaphysical science, not physical science necessarily. Although physical science have stole a lot of the metaphysical science in order to come up with solutions to what they was doing, or give them a guiding post towards their physical science. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a follow-up saying the Metatron cube reveals the 5 platonic solids that are the building blocks of the universe. It also shows the 5 elements: fire, air, water, earth, and ether. It's from sacred geometry.
From the mystic teachings, the Hindu teachings. So a theory and to Tantra, it's a, but you had something to say?
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit. I don't know if it's on my end or
Doing?
Yeah, your audio was breaking up for a bit.
Nah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You did break up a little bit, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, the theory, type of science that they use in
He might have to reconnect because it's still, he's going in and out. He doesn't know he's going in and out.
went on mute for some reason.
Oh,
You put me on mute.
no, I didn't touch it.
It went on mute for a minute, yeah. Anyway, it's used for it's not, that symbol is not used in the mystic, used in the magical world. In the mystic world, it's the 5 major pranas or the 5 elements.
Any more questions?
Have any questions?
Something's going on. You might have to log in and log out again. Unless you.
Me
Oh, I thought you were talking and we couldn't hear you.
my
Yeah, I think you might be having some issues with your connection. You might.
Dwayne, I see your lips.
Can you hear me? Like, are you able to? Can you hear me coming in clearly,
Sometimes you,
or is breaking up?
but sometimes you freeze up. Log out and log in.
Yeah, try logging out and logging back in. Let me know. As we wait for Nimai to come back, I wanted to look at the subject of the vital life fluid, or controlling the vital life fluid today. This particular set of notes are from 2013 when Nehemiah covered a class specifically. He's done several classes that include the subject, but I think this was back when he did a class specific on OJAS and the vital life fluids. I also pulled up several handouts that touch on the subject. And so as you read through this, I'll interject a couple of handouts. This is also, if you remember, a while ago when we looked at Kundalini power, as OJAS is an aspect of Kundalini. So if you go back to the collection of diagrams, or to the folders, the Google Drive folder, both last year and 2020 and 2021, you can look at the brief look of the chakra system and pranic flow, as well as several other diagrams where we talk about the Kundalini and the metaphysical makeup of man. OJAS is just one aspect of Kundalini that I wanted to focus on for today's discussion. There is also an audio lecture by Dr. George King titled Control the Vital Life Fluid. Well, I've been searching all of the audio downloads and CDs on the store, and I don't see that lecture there. Maybe it's under a different title, I'm not sure, but I don't see it on the store. But in that lecture, Dr. George King does go into great detail about OJAS and specifically its control and how its control is essential for spiritual development. So as we wait for Nehemiah to reconnect, I'll just go ahead and start reading from this handout. This particular set of notes, I don't think it was finished. It stops here at 8.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It looks blurry.
It looks blurry to you?
Yeah. It was.
Is that better?
No.
Can you see it, Bernard?
When you that's better there.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. And
All right, so again, these are extract from the notes from this series or lecture that Nehemiah did called Controlling the Vital Life Fluid. I have to go back in my files and find the full set, or I may have the full set of notes on paper. So I'll look for those, I'll scan them, and if I remember, I'll upload them into the Google Drive share folder. But this was a lecture he did particularly on OJAS and its control. And he's also, Dr. George King as well gave a lecture, I mentioned Control the Vital Life Fluids, but again, I don't see it on the theosociety.com website. But in both lectures, both Nehemiah's and Dr. George King stressed the importance of the control of the vital life fluid, what it was, its origin, its purpose, and how and why is essential to control it in order to promote proper spiritual development and also gain control over all the vital forces within the body. So this discussion also goes back to our study of the pranas. Remember the 5 major and the 5 minor pranas. I usually will focus on the major pranas within the human auric structure. Also in the lecture series, he gave a couple of techniques and practices to help us control the vital life fluids, particularly during times where they're most excited. So let's take a look at these notes, take a look at these handouts, and if you have any questions or comments on it, we'll be glad to address those, or any other comments you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be on this topic. Or any questions or comments you may have, feel free to ask them, and we can answer those for you. Okay, control the vital life fluid. Ojas, the power of subtle sexual energies. The fluid that we are referring to here is a sexual fluid released from the act of sexual intercourse, either through man's secretion of semen or woman's vaginal contraction and vaginal fluids during sexual arousal leading toward orgasm. The loss of these fluids has a tremendous impact on the physical organs of the body and the subtle auric structures, according to the ancient metaphysical teachings. In all 5 of the major religions, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, this fluid is looked upon as sacred and should only be used under marriage for the propagation of the human race. This fluid is described in great detail in the Hindu, Buddhist, and Tantra ancient teachings and is known as ojas, the vital life fluid of the body. The control of this fluid gives mankind the tool to prepare and condition the brain to receive highly concentrated patterns of subtle energies from the left and right flow of the nodic lines of force in the body, originating from the base of the spine chakra, Muladhara chakra. All right, so remember, as we're going through this, do keep in mind the metaphysical structure of man, metaphysical makeup of man, which is the foundational teaching of the mystic knowledge center, and how Nehemiah frames all of his instruction. And so he's talking about the left and right flows of the nodic energy, which we know as was taught to us as Ida and Pingala. All right, so keep all of that in mind as we read through this. And it'll better help you to understand and comprehend exactly what we're talking about. One question we get a lot is application of these teachings. So a lot of times it can be viewed as we are heavy in the theory and heavy in the technical aspect, but it is all the teachings that Nehemiah has put together and has been given to humanity for the ancient cosmic masters who have come to the earth. They're all highly applicable even in our daily lives. And this controlling of the vital life fluid is just one example of how the applicability of these teachings. So do keep in mind all of the previous lessons, the lectures, the diagrams. It's all of that Nehemiah created and put together to help us to understand and apply these teachings to ourselves, to our daily lives, and to our spiritual practice. These subtle nodic energies can be balanced with the help and a controlled upward flow of ojas to be lodged in the brain, giving man the ability to register the higher mental frequencies of mind and eventually gain greater spiritual awareness. In all the yogi teachings, the control of this sacred fluid called ojas is advocated if they aspire to gain higher spiritual awareness. They being the student or the advocate or the system advocates controlling of this sacred fluid, which is called ojas, in order to gain higher spiritual awareness. The greatest concentration of the Kundalini power lies dormant in the Muladhara chakra. And from this point, the goddess Kundalini sings the celestial song, and spreads a very small portion of its power throughout the physical and auric structure to bring about consciousness and life to all parts of the body. All right, let me find that. All right, so let me just jump to this. Oops, 1 second. Diagram here quickly. All right, so the point that's being referred to in those couple of lines, it is after the energy is pushed down. Oops, sorry. Sushumna. Remember, this diagram talks about Sushumna Nadic flow. I'll go back and read over this again, but we looked at this a couple of 2 weeks ago. What's being described here is as that energy is pushed down Sushumna to the Muladhara chakra, where I just mentioned the greatest concentration of the Kundalini energy. Remember, it wraps itself in that 3.5 knot configuration. Let me change it. Yeah, 3.5 knot configuration. And then from there, the goddess Kundalini sings the celestial song and spreads a portion of itself. That Kundalini energy pushes it out through the nadis to bring consciousness to the different parts of the body. Okay, let me go back to the text. The largest portion of the Ojas power belongs in the brain centers, where it was projected there by the goddess Kundalini. Over time, because of man's negative karmic patterns, this power of Ojas seems to have made a downward flow instead of flowing upwards where it belongs. This downward action of Ojas has helped to create the astral and auric distortion that has contaminated the mental, astral, and physical bodies of man on earth, leaving him limited in his ability to use these vehicles of expression in its greatest capacity. Ojas is known, let me see if there's any questions before I continue. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Ojas is known as a sexual energy of the body. Ojas is actually an aspect of Kundalini that flows through the body and binds the soul within the gross, basic mental, physical worlds of existence. This Ojas is the essence of that power released from the dormant state of Kundalini through a sonic vibration that sustains life in the basic mental and physical realms. The negative karmic pressures imposed on man's auric structure from lifetimes of wrong thought and action has restricted the auric structures to manifest the power of Ojas, or has restricted the auric structure's ability to manifest the power of Ojas on the very basic levels of consciousness and its tools of mental and physical expression. The Ojas in its basic gross form powers the plasma, blood cells, muscle tissues, fatty tissues, bones, bone marrow, and nerve tissues, and reproductive tissues. In the ancient Tantra teachings, these binding forces of the body are called dhatus, described as tissues or subtle solidified energetic fluid, which uses Ojas as its main ingredient or essence in powering its functions. All right, so that should be reminiscent or familiar to you from Ayurveda. And the dhatus are the main tissues. As mentioned here, that the Ojas is the main ingredient or essence of those tissues. It is the subtle energy that builds the bodies. see, did I pull down a diagram for that one? No, I didn't. Okay, I'll continue. Any questions or anything you want to add, Nehemiah, or continue?
No, go ahead and continue.
Okay. The soul manipulates the great Shakti power of the universe by concentrating a large portion of this power and pushing it into a pure, miniature, narrow divine state of consciousness called the Brahmic line of force. Then the soul takes this concentrated power of Shakti and pushes it down to the Muladhara chakra. At this level, the power is configured by the Muladhara pressures, and a vehicle of consciousness is formed and triggers a series of Shakti modifications which form various vehicles of expression. The vehicles of consciousness demands a number of modifications in order to reach its maximum capacity expression in this involved state of being. All right, let's take a quick look at the flow of Shakti power diagram to give us an illustration of what is being described here. Zoom in a bit. So we have here in this diagram describing the flow of Shakti power. Well, there's another one too. This one has a more cosmic level, but for right now, let's just focus on the human level of it. Shiva, the absolute and its potential. Use the Nada Shakti, the creative sound vibration. And also use the Shakti, the absolute power and this potential. And the principal Shakti, cosmic karmic signatures. Again, this is the flow of Shakti power that we're looking at here. So the principal Shakti, the cosmic karmic signatures. We have Vajna, Shakti as knowledge that frames karmic law. Then Chitta, Shakti as universal mind, that is the universe's blackboard, the background of the universe. Prana, Shakti as absolute power for the manifested universe. And then Ananda, Shakti as the blissful state of love, the preservative energy of the manifested universe. And then from which comes the Mahabhutas, the cosmic elements of the universe. We have Akasa, etheric sound that creates manifested space. Vayu, etheric air that brings speed and locomotion. Tejas, etheric fire that brings about expansion. Apas, etheric liquid that contracts and cools. And Prithivi, etheric solids that groups and contains. So I think earlier, one of the questioners was asking about the elements in sacred geometry. This is where they get that information from. And the cosmic tapetic rays, the cosmic pattern of the above energies, enters the galaxies of the universe through the central suns then flows through the central suns of the galaxies, down through the solar systems, and modified through the mighty sun and manifested as the following. 1, Nada, the creative word. 2, Chitta, universal mind. 3, Shakti, cosmic energies. 4, Mahabhutas, cosmic elements. 5, the 5 major pranas. 6, Tattvic rays. 8, the solar energies, Nadic flow. And then 9, solar chakra vortex centers. Right, so that's the cosmic and interplanetary level. And then from there, we get to the energy flows familiar to man. But first, we look at this all results into the planetary Nadic flows of energies. And the 49 planetary vortex centers that produce multi-layers realms of existence. You may have seen this referred to also as the 49 fires or the chakras of the Mother Earth, which leads to multi-levels of consciousness on the mineral, plant, animal, and human levels, on the mental, subtle, and gross levels. And then comes the topic rays formation at this level produces the following energy combinations. The man's level are the chakra petals, which is in the table above. The original samskara sounds of the soul. Manas, chitta, used by man. That's right. When the chitta, the universal mind, is they say touched by man, so when it becomes manas, or influence of man becomes manas. Kundalini, the soul's vehicle of consciousness. Nadis, a flow of energy projected from the power of Kundalini. Nadi nut, nadis threaded through the petals, activating the chakras, 5 major pranas, a positive vital flow of subtle energies that sustains life. 5 minor pranas, a negative vital flow of subtle energies that helps sustain life. Ojas here, subtle vital life fluids, and the 7 dhatus, 7 body tissues. Here in this diagram is the auric structure, the psychic centers, and on the fields of the aura, and there's one on the table here. English and Sanskrit names of the chakras, the petals, bhutas, and the cosmic elements, etc. Okay. So this illustrates what we were just reading in those 3 lines of that previous paragraph. So I wanted to jump that in to help better understand that information. Okay, so we stopped here. The first state of Shakti modification is the concentrated, condensed, dormant Shakti power called Kundalini, which releases a sound vibration that pushes aspects of this Kundalini into the soul's auric field of substance and begins to modify the trapped mind and pranic forces within the auric field. One example of this is the Ojas power, an aspect of the Kundalini that's recognized as a vital life fluid in the body, known as a sexual energy force. This Ojas becomes the life force of the 7 dhatu tissues, which uses the Kundalini power, the vortex power of the chakras, the bhutas or cosmic elements, and the 5 major pranas, all pervasive power, to build the gross human body and its subtle counterparts. Let's look at the 7 dhatus or the tissues. Please forgive my poor pronunciation of these terms. We'll start with the Ashti dhatu, which is the bones. And its related chakras is the Muladhara chakra, the base of the spine. Its cosmic elements are Prithivi Bhuta, or cosmic solids, and the pranas is Apana, which travels up and down. Excuse me. Next, we have the Medha dhatu, or the fatty tissues. Its related chakra is the Svadhisthana chakra, or the sex center. Its cosmic element is the Apas Bhuta, or cosmic liquids. And this prana is the Vyana prana, which moves throughout the entire body. And the Sukra dhatu, that belongs to the reproductive tissues. And the Mamsa dhatu, it's the muscle tissues, belongs to the Manipura chakra, or the solar plexus center. Its cosmic element is the Tejas Bhuta, cosmic fire, and its prana is the samana, or conjunction of power. Then we have the rakta dhatu. It is behind the blood cells. Its related chakra is the Anahata chakra, or the heart center. Its cosmic element is the Vayu Bhuta, and the cosmic gas or air, and its respective prana is prana, which also travels down and up, opposite of apana. Number 6, we have the Tvak dhatu. That is the skin, associated with the skin. Its related chakras is the Vishuddha chakra, the throat center. Its cosmic element is the Akasa Bhuta, or cosmic bound space. Its prana is Udana, which moves through the head, arms, and legs. And then finally, we have the Maja dhatu. That is the bone marrow and nervous tissue. And its related chakra is the Ajna chakra, Kai center. Its cosmic element is Manas. The physical body is held together by the Ojas power working with the dhatus, or the tissues, the bhutas, and the 5 major and minor pranas. And then here we have illustrations of the human and the anatomy of the physical body, human body. And then here we have a bit more description of the dhatus. The Ashti dhatu, the bones, and then the Medha dhatu, the fatty tissues. The Medha dhatus is produced or formed from the Mamsa dhatus, which is number 6, to house the muscles of the body. The Sukra dhatu, the reproductive tissues. The Rasa dhatus, the plasma. The Rasa dhatus has the ability to capture the incoming nutrients and supply them to the tissues and organs throughout the body. The loss of Ojas overworks the Rasa dhatus to replace the blood cells that are depleted. And in the Control the Vital Life Fluid lecture, if I'm correct, Nehemiah, Dr. George King says that Ojas is worth, I think it's 3 times its weight in blood, or that's the kind of the equivalency he draws between the two. So when we lose or discharge that Ojas, we're losing a large amount of blood. There's a large amount of blood lost in that loss of Ojas. Rakta dhatu, blood cells. The Rakta dhatus is formed from the Rasa dhatus, which gives life or substance to the bodies. It is known as blood cells, an instrument used to express vitality in the body. The loss of Ojas depletes the blood cells. Mamsa dhatu, the muscle tissue. Mamsa dhatus is formed from the Rakta dhatus. Mamsa represents the muscle tissue in the body. The loss of Ojas weakens the muscles and drains the strength and energy from the body, which brings about fatigue. Which is why usually you'll hear of high-performing athletes before they enter a competition or any type of event where they need to perform at their peak, they'll refrain from sexual activity until afterwards. This is the reason behind that. And then finally, Maja dhatu, bone, muscle, and nervous tissues. I believe that's it for, yeah. So that's it for this set of notes. Any questions or any comments, anybody you wanted to?
No, no.
Okay, so really quick, we looked at this diagram talking about concentration, contemplation, and meditation. I wanted to look at it again to help answer the question of why. Why do we want to control the vital life fluid? A couple answers are given of that in the pages that we just looked at, just read. If we remember of our discussion of, just keeps kicking me off, looked at our discussion of concentration, contemplation, and meditation previously, and how we also looked at the looming effect of Tantra Yoga diagram, where it shows how Nehemiah depicts how all the yogas are connected and make up a whole system of spiritual development to help us work towards true meditation, true samadhi, and eventually accomplishing Laya Yoga and ascension. A essential first step, or as Dr. George King described it as the first rung on the ladder of spiritual development, is the control of the vital life fluids, which is, I found, much easier said than done. But through study, through Nani Yoga, we can reinforce ourselves with the right knowledge, which will then lead to the right speech and the right actions. So that eventually we can develop these powers of concentration, contemplation, and meditation. So I want to read through this again because in this handout, particularly in this paragraph here, OJAS is briefly mentioned, but if you do not understand or the importance of OJAS or really understand what that energy is, you can miss these important points in the development of concentration, contemplation, and meditation. So let's look at this handout again. I do believe this is in the shared folder, Google Drive shared folder, but if it's not, do let me know and I'll be sure to get it up because I also have to go back and find those original notes for that control vital life force lecture. So, but if this handout is not there, send us an email and I'll make sure to get it up and I'll remember to look up and find those original notes. Chakras and the power of concentration, contemplation, and meditation. Concentration, in plain English, the yogi through Raja Yoga and several other methods uses concentration techniques to bring about singularity of mind at will, thereby gaining the ability to willfully move concentrated mental pressures to push the flow of prana through the positive and negative nadi channels. Contemplation. Contemplation. These long periods of mental concentration push the yogi to a point where he gains the power of contemplation. This is where he begins to receive abstract information from the subtle senses, which results from his singularity of mind. This power of contemplation brings forth psychic abilities that allow the practitioner to bring about longer periods of singularity of mind, giving him a greater power over larger quantities of the subtle and physical life forces. Through constant practice of contemplation, this gives the practitioner the power over the life forces within the body. And what are those life forces? It is the pranas, the dhatus, and so forth. Meditation. This meditation also helps to bring about, also helps to bring about extreme abilities of deep and long periods of concentration and contemplation, which is needed to take the practitioner to a level of true meditation. At the level of meditation, which is said to be brought about by the ability to compress the power of 12 hours of deep concentration into a few seconds or minutes in order to trigger a true state of meditation, which is the power needed to take all the life forces of the body and concentrate it on the dormant power of Kundalini in order to unlock it. So in other words, concentration leads to contemplation, which leads to meditation, which in each step you gain greater and greater control over the life forces within the body, within the aura. And then at true meditation, you're able to take control over all of the life forces, contract or pull it from the different parts of the body. Because remember, we talked about earlier of how Kundalini is when it is the Muladhara, it ties itself into that 3.5 knot configuration, and then the goddess sings the song or releases a small portion of that Kundalini energy out throughout the body in order to bring consciousness or bring life to the different vehicles of expression about the bodies. Now at meditation, you're pulling back all of that vital life force energy from the bodies and concentrating it, bringing it back to that Kundalini in order to take it from a state of dormancy to awaken it and to unlock it, and then move it up Sushumna to in turn awaken the major centers as you travel up Sushumna all the way up to Yon. So you can kind of begin to see why Dr. George King says that the control of this vital life fluid is the first rung on the ladder of spiritual development. Because if you cannot control the ojas, then you cannot concentrate, cannot contemplate, and you certainly cannot meditate. This Sushumna Nadic flow of energy carries a Shakti quality of the preservational forces of all cosmic energies. The Sushumna Nadic line of force holds consciousness in manifestation on several planes or lokas of existence, and allows man to gain countless lifetimes of valuable experience. It is said that the Sushumna Nadi has 3 inner channels that seem to compress all the qualities of Shakti force and the Nadic and chakra system into one minute channel that pushes upward and forward, opening the major chakras and giving tremendous power over the cosmic energies and mind energies, placing man's conscious awareness on a supra-conscious level. Okay, and then here we go into, again, discussion of the layers of the Sushumna Nadi. The first layer of the nadic vibrations within the Sushumna Nadi is called Vajra Nadi, a conduit inside the central channel that extends from the genital region to the head region. The Vajra is described as a hard substance like diamonds, or a hard diamond-like substance, hard but lustrous with the light and power of thunderbolts. It is said that this layer of Sushumna Nadis, the Vajra Nadi, is the place where the sexual energy Ojas connects with the brain. Ojas is the highest form of base physical manifested energy in the human body, which is a concentrated form of semen. So remember we talked about earlier, I mentioned that the Ojas energy supposed to be concentrated in the brain, but due to mankind's evolution, it was brought down to the genital region, and it is this Vajra Nadi that is that conduit for Ojas to flow from the brain to the genital regions and back up from the genital regions to the brain, which is why one of the practices advocated to us or taught to us is the standing on the head. And on that practice, we assist or we help the flow of Ojas to go back up this Vajra Nadi to the brain, and thereby increasing the flow or the amount of Ojas present in the brain, and also helping us in our concentration practices. So Andrea says, so do women have Ojas? Yes, they do. So let me go back to that paragraph where Nehemiah describes the Ojas fluid for women. We'll read that together. Can you guys see that? I think it says my screen is bad. All right, so here in the first paragraph, the fluid that we're referring to here is a sexual fluid released from the act of sexual intercourse, either through man's secretion of semen or woman's vaginal contraction and vaginal fluids during sexual arousal leading towards orgasms. So yes, women do have Ojas. Well, okay, Ojas is the vital life fluid of the human organ structure, and goes to building the tissues, which goes to build the bodies. But in men, Ojas physically is represented as the seminal fluid, and in women is represented as the vaginal fluids. But everyone has Ojas. Okay, so the question here is, so do women have Ojas? Yes, and it's not good to flow it. Well, let me read the next couple of sentences in that first paragraph, and hopefully that'll answer your question. And then if Nehemiah can further expand on that. So the loss of these fluids has a tremendous impact on the physical organs of the body and the subtle auric structures, according to the ancient metaphysical teachings. In all 5 of the major religions, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, this fluid is looked upon as sacred and should only be used under marriage for the propagation of the human race. Yeah, so the question is, control as in no sex or regulated? Yes, control as in no casual sex. The only time, according to the teachings, where this fluid should be released is for the purpose of the propagation of the race, or to reproduce or to have children. Other than that, according to the teachings, it should be used for its intended purpose, which is the building, maintaining of the bodies, and for spiritual development.
Yeah, so let's be practical with that too. We understand that is the law. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, that is the law. Is strict control over the vital life fluids, which is OJAS. Now we know that mankind have abused that energy, and mankind is addicted to that energy. There's an addiction to the release of that energy, and it's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years. Mankind have been misusing that energy. So to strictly control the energy, you have to wean yourself from that. So there's various methods of doing that. To very few people can strictly control it immediately. And when you try to strictly, the same way when you're on a drug, if a person is on a drug, they have to wean that person off the drug. So when you talk about strictly controlling this energy and the release of this energy, you have to do the same thing. To try to force it immediately, you can bring about adverse effects of physical and mental illness. So there's methods of controlling it. There's a whole book written by Swami Sivananda. I think I have the book on the website where it gives you multiple techniques to help do this, and it gives you a good understanding of why. One of the reasons, quick reference, is that the 21 impurity traits that we talk about, it helps you, by controlling this energy, it helps you to control and to dissipate and destroy those 21 impurity traits that actually create the blockages for the psychic energy called the nadis to flow through your body and for you to gain control over. Because of those blockages, those traits or blockages that's in the body is fed by the Kundalini power or the celestial zone that we talked about earlier in my write-up. It feeds these impurity traits. And these impurity traits creates a craving or desire within mankind to continue to repeat them and build up negative karma over lifetimes. But the control of this energy will one by one kill out these traits and allow you to ascend to a higher level of consciousness. So that's one of the reasons for controlling the OJAS. And that's one of the reasons why you have adverse effects when you do control it, those impurity traits, which makes up what Dr. George King talks about, your basic self. They begin to fight back because they don't want to be destroyed. They don't want to die. So they create all type of adverse effects within your mind, within your body, within your emotions, in order to stay alive. Because when you begin to control these fluids, they are drowned, they are disintegrate, they begin to disintegrate. There's no desire to have anger, malice, envy, lust. There's no desire for these things anymore. So they fight, that part of your basic self fight to stay alive, because it's been with you for lifetimes. So control of OJAS is the first step in the mystic ladder of evolution. I hope that explains it a little better.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? The second inner layer of Sushumna Nadi is called the Tritra Nadi. The configuration of this Tritra Nadic force is of a sattvic quality, a pure Shakti force or fire, Agni, Sun, Surya, and Moon, Chandra, at its highest level of equilibrium throughout every level of this channel. These three energy configurations are known as the three aspects of Sabda Brahman. Within this Trita Nadi is the Brahma Nadi, where the pure cosmic energy of evolution flows as the power of Kundalini. It is the Kundalini power that travels through the Brahma Nadi, where all major chakras resides. As the Kundalini power passes through this channel, it opens each chakra that resides along this inner path of the Sushumna Brahma, of the Sushumna's Brahma Nadi, that brings man from a limited conscious state to an expanded conscious state. Okay. So I just wanted to cover that today, especially for my benefit, because there's a lesson I need to be reminded of. Do we have any questions or comments? Was there anything else you wanted to cover, Nehemiah? That's all I had for her today.
No, not really. I think that that chart on the Shati kind of answer the questions that the earlier people was asking about the elements.
Yes.
You know, people get caught up in terminology or the excitement of terminology and not realizing that this chart right here is ancient information. It was written down thousands upon thousands of years ago. And the scientists, the alchemists, the scientists, even the dark forces, they take this and modify it and create different terminologies for it. And then they take the symbols and they rework the symbols to make it exciting. But a lot of times they violating mystic laws. So it's because there's a lot of mystic laws that goes into shape power or symbols, and you know, those things are almost like mantra or mudras that you know you don't reveal or you don't give out to anybody. And when you do, you have to do it in a very responsible way, because it's one of those mystic practices or procedures that bring about immediate power. So that's why you have to be careful with it. You have to be careful with mantra, be careful with mudra, and even certain forms of prayer, because it can be used, it can be used in a irresponsible manner.
There's a question here. It says, Dr. King recommends waiting an hour after pranayama before eating. What is the reason for this, and is it flexible?
Yeah, in most yoga practices, you have to wait 2 to 3 hours before you do the practice, and another hour after you do the pranayama practice. And that's a standard thing that's been going on for thousands of years. Some people indicate 2 hours before, 1 hour afterwards. Some people indicate 3 hours before and 1 hour afterwards. That allows the energy to settle. The same way if you were taking in certain nutrition, certain liquid nutrition, you taking in certain liquid nutrition, they tell you take it on an empty stomach, wait on which is at least 2 hours from the last time you ate, or first thing in the morning. Well, with pranayama, they tell you to do it 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Practice pranayama after waiting 2 to 3 hours.
Excuse me.
And then 1 hour afterwards. Some people who try to eat and then do pranayama, they experience something like the bends, something similar to the bends when you're going underwater. I don't know if you did any deep sea diving or whatever. Some people describe it like that. So that's why it's good to do the 2 hours, at least 2 to 3 hours before and 1 hour afterwards, because you will experience uncomfortableness in your breath or your diaphragm if you go and eat right away or eat before. Hope that answers your question.
Any other final questions or comments before we close out today's open discussion? All right, there's no further questions, comments. I just close out today's session with reciting of the New Lord's Prayer. The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up, and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength, so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. Oh, great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance, your attention, your questions and comments. Don't forget to pick up, when you can, a copy of The Cosmic Voice, volumes 1 and 2. We'll be looking at those eventually. Also, feel free to visit our website, mysticknowledge.org, and look at all the materials and resources made available, free for download, lots of text, as well as information on Nehemiah's first book, Ancient Language of the Soul. You can pick up a copy of that text and follow through the study sessions where we actually read through the entire book, as well as subsequent open discussion courses where we looked at a few key highlights from each chapter and discussed them with Nehemiah to gain further insight into that material. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.